In the early 2000s, Enron was a name synonymous with innovation and ambition. It was the seventh largest corporation in the United States, a paragon of modern capitalism, employing 30,000 people and generating over $100 billion in revenue. But beneath the surface of this seemingly unstoppable giant lurked a web of deception so intricate that it would take down not only the company but also one of the world's most respected accounting firms. By the end of 2001, Enron had collapsed into bankruptcy, its executives facing criminal charges, its employees left jobless, and the very fabric of corporate America shaken to its core. How did this happen? How did Enron go from being the darling of Wall Street to the epitome of corporate greed and fraud? This is the story of the rise and fall of Enron, and the critical lessons it teaches us about the importance of transparency in business. Welcome to the tale of Enron, a story of ambition, deceit, and the dangers of unchecked power. The story begins in 1985 with the merger of two energy companies, Internorth and Houston Natural Gas. At the helm was Kenneth Lay, a man whose vision was as bold as it was risky. Lay was more than just a businessman. He was deeply connected in Washington, a former Pentagon financial analyst with a PhD in economics. His ties to the corridors of power would later play a crucial role in Enron's meteoric rise and its catastrophic fall. Under Lay's leadership, Enron quickly moved beyond its traditional role as an energy supplier. The 1980s and 90s were a time of deregulation, especially in the energy sector. Lay saw an opportunity to transform Enron from a regional utility into a global energy powerhouse. By 1991, Lay had brought in a young and ambitious executive named Jeffrey Skilling to lead Enron's trading operations. Skilling had a revolutionary idea to turn energy into a commodity that could be traded like stocks and bonds. Skilling introduced a new accounting method called mark-to-market. This allowed Enron to book potential future profits on the day a deal was signed, no matter how speculative those profits were. In theory, it was a way to reflect the future value of long-term contracts. In practice, it was a license to manipulate earnings, and manipulate they did. Enron's reported profits soared, and so did its stock price. Investors couldn't get enough. Enron's stock became a must-have on Wall Street, and the company's market value skyrocketed to $70 billion. The media praised Enron's innovative approach, hailing it as the future of the energy industry. But behind the scenes, the reality was far more sinister. The brilliance of Skilling's strategy lay not in its innovation, but in its opacity. Enron's financials were so complex, so convoluted, that even seasoned analysts struggled to understand them. And that was exactly the point. Enron used a web of special-purpose vehicles, SPVs, shell companies designed to hide debt and inflate profits. These SPVs were often funded with Enron's own stock, meaning that as long as the stock price stayed high, the scheme would hold. One of the most notorious of these SPVs was named LJM, managed by Enron's own CFO, Andrew Fastow. LJM and other similar entities allowed Enron to keep billions in debt off its balance sheet, making the company appear far more profitable than it was. It was a classic case of robbing Peter to pay Paul, using new investments to cover up the losses from failed ventures. But as the 1990s drew to a close, Enron's empire began to crack. The company had expanded into risky ventures, from broadband to weather derivatives, all of which bled cash. When the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, Enron's stock took a hit, and suddenly, the cracks in the facade started to show. Investors and analysts began to ask questions, but the answers were evasive, the numbers unclear. By early 2001, Enron's stock price had halved. Skilling, sensing the impending doom, abruptly resigned in August, leaving Kenneth Lay to pick up the pieces. But by then, it was too late. The SEC had launched an investigation into Enron's accounting practices, and the walls were closing in. October 16, 2001, Enron announced a quarterly loss of $618 million, its first in years. The company admitted to overstating its earnings by nearly $600 million, and suddenly, the house of cards began to collapse. Enron's stock price plummeted to under $1 per share, as the reality of its financial situation became clear. Behind the scenes, Enron's accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, was busy shredding documents, an act that would later lead to the firm's demise. The once mighty Enron, a symbol of American corporate success, was now a sinking ship, and everyone on board was scrambling to save themselves. On December 2, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy. Thousands of employees lost their jobs, their pensions, and their livelihoods. Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling were eventually charged with conspiracy, fraud, and insider trading. Arthur Andersen, one of the world's most respected accounting firms, was convicted of obstruction of justice and was forced to shut down. The ripple effects of Enron's collapse were felt across the globe, shaking the foundations of corporate America. The fall of Enron wasn't just a financial disaster, it was a moral one. The Enron scandal exposed the dark side of corporate America, where profit was valued above ethics, and success was built on a foundation of lies. In response, the US government enacted the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2002, a sweeping reform designed to improve corporate transparency and accountability. Among its provisions, it required CEOs and CFOs to personally certify the accuracy of financial statements, ensuring that they could no longer plead ignorance. But the lessons of Enron go beyond legislation. They remind us that transparency is not just a legal requirement, it's a moral imperative. When companies prioritize secrecy over honesty, when they manipulate numbers to meet expectations, they undermine the very foundation of trust that capitalism relies on. And when that trust is broken, the consequences can be devastating, not just for the company, but for everyone connected to it. Today, 2 decades after Enron's collapse, the financial world continues to evolve, but the shadow of Enron still looms large. New scandals emerge, new companies rise and fall, and the lessons of Enron remain as relevant as ever. As we move forward, it's crucial to remember the importance of transparency, ethics, and accountability in business, because without them, we risk repeating the mistakes of the past. In the end, Enron's story is not just a tale of corporate greed, it's a cautionary tale for all of us. It's a reminder that in the pursuit of success, the truth must never be sacrificed. As we build the future, we must ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to create? A world where transparency and integrity are the cornerstones of business, or a world where deception and greed reign supreme? The story of Enron is a story of ambition, deceit, and the ultimate price of corporate fraud, but it's also a story that challenges us to learn from the past and build a better, more honest future. If you found value in this journey, be sure to subscribe for more insights into the world of finance and the stories that shape it. Until next time, keep asking questions and always seek the truth.